how do you deal with mass genocide where 90 to 95% of the indigenous population was wiped out in a short time and you took the land? You can't really wipe that one away except to forget it, to push it away, push it to the sides. And consequently, there's two stereotypes that remain of the American Indian, the way that we continue to be othered in a small way that we are remembered. One is the old stereotype that we're wagon burners when it comes to a question of power or territory. That's how they othered us. We were wagon burners, terrible people. And the other now, more recent one, is lo, the poor fallen nature god. Oh, it's terrible what's happened, but we love their art and we love them in museums and all of that sort of thing. It's part of history. Never are we complicated individuals who've endured and in many ways shaped American history.
Let me ask then, specifically for 2020.
Okay.
What your main things that you would like to accomplish, what you'll be proudest of when you look back in 2021. What does this coming year look like for you?
Very important. Just as we created a partnership, precedent-setting partnership with Sonoma County with a co-management agreement of Tole Lake Regional Park, we are now looking to create partnerships with nonprofits, the state parks, and the federal parks to co-manage and support those parks with those respective agencies. I think partnerships are key, and we can create those models. And so I'm really looking forward to creating those partnerships. In fact, I talked to Gavin Newsom about that just before Christmas, and he thinks that's the way to go. Partnerships are what we have to do. The other thing that I'm also really proud of is I'm on the board of the Museum of the American Indian, the Smithsonian board, and they just agreed to allow me, working with them, to create a template for the public schools to recreate the history and culture that will be taught of Indian people in the schools. A template that'll be for fourth grade, eighth grade, and the senior year. And each template will have, depending on the difficulty of the level, will have 3 strands. National Indian history, state Indian history, and local Indian history, preferably written by the local Indians themselves. We will create this digitally. It'll be in the libraries and public schools for all teachers in these classes.
And where's the funding coming from?
The funding, a lot of it's going to come from Graton.
Huh? Okay. The other thing that's happening in 2020 are things that we have no control over. There'll be an election, there'll be an impeachment trial, there will be continuing tensions in the Middle East, there'll be a census. All of these things are happening whether we want them to or not, and they will affect us and our lives. What's your thought about any of that in the coming year?
I'm very worried, obviously, about the world situation and climate disaster. And obviously we have to vote in state and federal elections. We have to voice our opinion. We have to protest and do all the things we've always done and pay attention to the larger currents. But most importantly, all of us have to act locally and do what we can and what's within our power locally to create models, healthy cells, so even if things fall apart, there will be a counter narrative. Let Sonoma County, let Graton Resort and Casino, let the Federated Indians of Graton Rancheria work with others, the parks, the regional parks, the county, the state, and the federal government to create healthy models that are a counter story to one of homelessness, fear, and environmental degradation.
Okay, and then let's go, it's 2020, let's look forward to 2040. You probably won't be the chairman anymore, you'll be 87, so will I. But what do you see in the further future? Because one of the things we're doing is we're looking at 2020, and then our idea was to look at the future with as close as we could to 2020 vision.
Look back 20 years and what's happened and look forward 20 years. Well, I'm very concerned about the climate models and how fast we are, and that is going to determine everything. And until we come to terms with that, I think if we are around and if civilization isn't, as we know it, isn't greatly compromised, what a world economy hopefully will be based on will be an economy of environmental recovery. Because that is what we're going to have to do. And if there's any business and jobs to do to survive, it's going to have to be in that area and involve many of us. So if we look ahead 20 years and things are happening very fast, and there may be some difficulties, but if we get past war, if we get past famine, if we get past drought, we still have the opportunity to work together using human imagination to once again create a healthy home. And if the economy is based on that, on environmental recovery, I think we can make it. That's going to be the way. But it's going to take that transformation. Let me end with a story that has come to mind. Mabel McKay, the great Pomo basket weaver and medicine woman here, who was such an influence in my life. About 50 years ago, I was driving back from 40 years ago, God, I'm getting old, from Stanford University with her, and she was down there talking to the students, and we were driving, and she was looking at the hills, and she said, everything's going to dry. Everything's going to go dry. It's going to burn. The world's going to heat up. Everything's going to go dry. That's before we had terms like global warming, or at least they weren't in common parlance, but at that point. But she was saying that, and of course I was a youngish man, and I said, oh, and she said that was her latest dream of the future. And I said, oh, Mabel, what do we do? Well, that's horrible. What are we going to do? And she started laughing. And she said, that's cute. What are we going to do? I said, no, Mabel, I'm serious. Really, what do we do? And she was silent for a moment. And then she said, as clear as a bell, you live the best way you know how. What else? So now, going into the next 20 years, we have to live the best way we know how. We can't be scared. We have to find peace within ourselves, because the whole notion of running and being scared of the future and the past is a history that shaped where we are today. Fearful and running, fearful of the other. But we do have to find ways to live the best way we know how and live it.
All right. Thanks, Greg. I always love talking with you. I appreciate your taking the time.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for caring.